Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on 9 News Plus on yet another stormy day ahead for us here on this Thursday, July the 20th. Looks like we'll be dealing with widespread strong to severe thunderstorms that'll be impacting the metro area in the next, I would say, beyond a few minutes at this point, a few hours at this point, and saying we're probably looking at those storms moving their way on into the west side of the metro area in the next few minutes. And for a bit more about what you can expect today, and also a bit more of kind of a broad context weather discussion, now joined by my colleague, meteorologist Cory Reppenhagen, who is on the south side of the metro area, starting to see those first storms flare on up. And Cory, first of all, where exactly are you? First of all, and then second of all, what are you expecting in terms of that severe weather risk for today?
Hey, Chris, I'm up here in Lone Tree, just above the Cabela's, and I'm watching the initial storms starting to fire here. At least the latest wave of storms. We had storms this morning, but we're going to have dealing with several waves of storms today. And you can kind of see back behind me here. That's looking back towards the conifer evergreen area up into the foothills. There's a cell that's really starting to get its act together. So what I'm expecting, well, let's just say that I'm a little concerned because of the ingredients that we have available today. Once again, moisture levels, the humidity is off the charts once again, with dew points up above 60 degrees here in the metro. That is always a concern. And then we have a shortwave trough inbound that is going to kind of add a little bit of a storm front interaction with all that kind of moisture that's streaming up from a little bit of a monsoon. So all those are about to come together, and what I am basically the area, and so a lot of different waves with a wave that's developing right now. So we'll see storms here in the Denver metro here within the hour, and then another wave after that, probably in the 4 o'clock hour, and then another wave after that, maybe around sunset or dark. So all of these thunderstorms today will have the potential to deliver some very large hail and some strong winds in excess of 60 miles per hour. So that's a damaging wind gust. So I'll be watching for those, and starting with this first wave of thunderstorms that's coming through here. That looks like the main part of this is going to impact the south side of the Denver metro.
Yeah, Cory, again, you're out there tracking some of those storms, and just a bit of a broad recap. I should also mention that we're going to see a severe thunderstorm watch issued by the Storm Prediction Center within the hour. That will include the Denver area. That's basically locked in at this point. And we're going to have a severe thunderstorm watch. So again, large hail. If you're joining us from home and you have the car outside, bring that car inside the garage. I've actually gotten a few texts from some friends this morning asking whether or not today is one of those days to cover up the garden. And Cory, to your point, anytime it's 60 or above and we got that wind shear in place like today, that is an immediate, somebody is going to get something kind of day. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where, but we were texting about this before earlier on this morning. Once we saw those dew points rebound into the low 60s, we both went, uh-oh, somebody's going to get something, right?
Yeah, and then we saw the kind of the skies clear out for a little while. Potentially, we may have only seen today a clearing and a warm up of just an hour, but we got a clearing and a warm up of almost 3 hours. So that makes a huge difference, and I think that's going to play into what happens today. And it's just all it is potential. That's all we can say. Like you just mentioned, it's hard to say exactly where and if anywhere in the Denver metro will get hit. But this first wave seems to line up the South metro, and if we do get another wave and another wave after that, we could end up with several spots in the Denver metro area that gets large hail today, which would be larger than 1 inch, which would be the size of a quarter.
And also, Cory, one of the things we kind of want to emphasize here as well is that often people tend to think about severe weather. I think the first question we always get is tornadoes. I think we always say, don't worry about the tornadoes because their chances of getting seriously hurt or dying in a tornado, you got a better chance of having your lawnmower run you over than you do of dying in a tornado here in Colorado. It's not to mitigate tornadoes, but what's probably going to impact you is going to be two things. One, we've been talking about the large hail threat. And two, Cory, something we haven't touched on yet, the flash flood potential. And today, to me, and I know I texted you this earlier today. I don't know if you have a similar feeling. This kind of reminds me of that day about a month ago when downtown Denver had the flash flooding at I-25, and we saw the Highlands neighborhood and Edgewater neighborhoods really hard hit by some quarter-sized hail. Today reminds me of that rather than, say, the Highlands Ranch tornado, the tennis ball-sized hail that pounded that region. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And you mentioned the Highlands Ranch tornado day. That was a day where we expected to see a supercell close to Denver. Maybe not in the heart of Denver, but like we did. But that was a classic kind of supercell kind of day. And today we're just kind of loading up the atmosphere with moisture and some wind shear ingredients where you could get a little bit of a slow mover through the Denver metro area, and you could get more than a half inch in 15 minutes. You could get close to an inch in 15 minutes, and that's the type of rainfall that really causes a huge issue. The only difference between today and that big kind of what we call the kind of today, this year's downtown flood day and some of those other days in late May and early June was that we have had now about a week or a week and a half of intense evaporation ahead of this storm, whereas those other storms were back to back to back to back, and the water just had nowhere to go. At least today, the storm drainage system and just the ground in general will be able to catch up with some of that rainfall just a little bit better. But we're with that amount of moisture available, we're still looking at the potential to get more than a half inch of rain in less than 15 minutes and even more. So it doesn't matter how receptive the ground and the drainage system are when you get that type of moisture. There's just nowhere for the water to go that fast.
Yeah, when you get 10% of your average annual precipitation in 20 minutes is a problem here in the high desert. I guess final thing here, Cory, that I want to emphasize. I know we've been focusing on the metro area. Our friends in eastern, southeast Colorado could be in for perhaps an even, I think, worse day. I think that flash flood potential certainly ramps up as you get east and south of Denver, Elbert County, Lincoln County on south and east of those areas. What are you expecting in some of those areas, and what would be your main concerns, again, for the eastern plains, east of Denver, as well as along and south of the Palmer Divide?
Yeah, I think the potential and the danger level to those thunderstorms is going to be 2 to 3 times bigger than it is in the Denver metro area. We even have a potential for some supercell tornadoes down there. So we're looking at tornadoes. We're looking at hail. Probably, if we can reasonably expect 1 to 1.5 inch hail here in the Denver metro area, we're looking at hail larger than 3 inches down there, and like you mentioned, Albert County, Lincoln County, in as far as our core viewing area goes, is where I'd be concerned for that. So I really do think that those storms down there, just on the south end of the Palmer Divide, and just towards the the southeast plains, just ahead of that area, I really think the threat of those thunderstorms is 2 to 3 fold what we're going to see here in the Denver metro area.
So, I guess big takeaway here, Cory. It's one of those days. It looks like once again with that dew point we've been talking about. Once that magic number reaches 60 degrees, we go uh-oh. And we've had some of that clearing. You mentioned a bit more than probably what we anticipate. We've got the wind shear. We've got the ingredients in place for some severe storms. So I'll defer to you here, Cory, one more time in terms of what you would advise people. But I think it's safe to say that today is another one of those days where we need to use all those hail precautions, cover up the garden, and that includes the metro area, correct?
Yeah, I think that does include the metro area. And so the way to look at it, I mean, we could easily get through all these storms, could kind of drift through the metro area, just dropping nickel to dime size hail in a couple of spots, and we could really kind of skate by at least this first wave and the second wave for that matter. But we've seen so many times with the way that the terrain in the Denver metro interacts with air that's coming upslope. So you get a little bit of a circulation, you get a little bit more lift from the angle of the foothills, and with the dew points up above 60, you just have to be concerned. And you have to let everyone know that about that concern, even though we know there is a potential for all these storms to kind of drift across the metro and not fire up to extreme strength until they get to the east side of the metro. But with the ingredients that we have and just the terrain interaction here in the Denver metro area, it doesn't take much. I mean, it takes very little at all when you have these ingredients to just kind of get those storms ramped up. So we're talking about potential once again here today, and I think there's just enough potential to raise that level of concern in the metro just a little bit, one more notch up.
Absolutely. Well, I know you'll be tracking it. In fact, in the next few minutes, I'm going to be heading out the door tracking these storms as well. So we'll be tracking them all afternoon for you here on 90s Plus. 90s at 4 and 5. Cory and I will be tag teaming some of the coverage here of this severe weather. So just make sure to have a way to get those weather warnings and keep it here on 90s Plus. But in the meantime, Cory, thanks so much for joining us here on 90s Plus, and stay safe out there today.
Yep, we'll see you out there, buddy.